Let's take a breath together. I'm going to close this because there's nothing in there for this talk. I will just distract myself with it. Let's take another breath. So I woke up the last 2 mornings with this all-encompassing, what exactly am I celebrating this July 4th? Am I celebrating the signing of a document? Or am I celebrating what that document says? Because I can get next to celebrating the signing of a document. I can get next to the intention of freedom. And if I'm being really honest, where I struggle is the contents of that document that didn't include the entirety of the female bodies that birth us. Not included in that document. We still can't, as a country, find our way to pass an equal rights amendment to our Constitution that specifically does include women. And it's an interesting thing to me, and I'm finding myself challenged to celebrate that. I'm okay celebrating men. I'm just not okay just celebrating men. I'm not okay celebrating this foundational idea that a man's voting power is based on his property and women and children being relegated to that property and brown-skinned human beings being relegated to that property and not even as a whole person, as 3/5 of a person. I cannot get next to that. And that is all included in our document. If you're not familiar with the Dred Scott case, the Dred Scott case is a Supreme Court ruling of the United States. It is in writing in the files of our Supreme Court rulings that very clearly states the Constitution of the United States was never intended to apply to black people. It's right there. That's a Supreme Court ruling. And so am I celebrating that when I celebrate the 4th of July? I don't know anymore. And part of my dance on the human level is, why did it take me 61 years to go, what the heck am I celebrating? I don't know. It took what it took. And when I think about the words, we hold these truths, if I just stop there, what's true in our founding documents? Not much. Not much in terms of actual truth. It's people's opinions at the time, it's people's perspective at the time, but in terms of truth, I'm not sure there's a ton there, but I think there's some. And if we continue with that, we hold these truths to be self-evident. So what does self-evident actually mean? You can do a lot of research in the Gospel according to Google. And you can get self-evident, meaning requires no explanation, all the way to it is evident, it is evidenced within the self, requiring no validation from someone else. There's a whole range of understanding. And I suspect there's a whole lot more because we each relate to things from an individual perspective based on what we've kind of gone through in life. So if we look at this idea of we hold these truths to be self-evident, then I go to a different place. What is evidenced in my life as truth? Where does truth show up where it is unarguably identifiable, where I believe so deeply that no matter what you think, say, or do, I am unmoved from my belief? Is it evidenced within me, beyond my filters? Is it that innate part of me, beyond my ego experiences? What is at the center of me that is an inalienable right? What is there? Well, integrity is there. Wholeness is there. Completeness is there. Perfection is there. And I want to be really clear here. I'm talking about that substance that we're made of, beyond our behavior, beyond our humanity. At the very core of us is that self-evident in my life? Do I so deeply recognize the truth of my own being as a spiritual manifestation that it is self-evident to everybody who comes in contact with me? And if I'm being really honest, some days yes, some days no. Some days yes, and then moments of no. It really, if I'm being honest, the uncomfortable truth is all too often it depends on what's happening in the world around me as to how I show up, which is not self-evident at all. That is conditioned evidence, right? The truth of me shows up depending on what's happening in my physical environment. That is not the truth of me. That is the conditioned me. The truth of me is somewhere underneath all of that conditioning. The truth of me is that place that honestly I haven't had to test, and I'm okay if I get off this planet without having to test it. But that place where you come home and you drive up in your driveway and your house is on fire. Can you be at peace while that's happening? Because that's available to us. You know, when I remember a story about Don Miguel Ruiz. He was doing some shopping, is my understanding, and he came out of the store and his vehicle had been stolen. His first response was, cool, I get a new car. I don't know that I would be in that space right off the bat. But that's what's available to us, is to be so deeply centered in the truth of our being that nothing rattles us. Nothing. And so on this 4th of July, I'm looking at this in a very different way. Do I hold these truths to be self-evident? Do I really believe that within me is the inalienable right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness? Because if I understand creation the way I say I do, then those things are available to me no matter what anybody does. Nelson Mandela proved that as he sat in prison. His body was imprisoned, but his heart and his mind were not. Do I really believe that I have the inalienable right to life, liberty, in the pursuit of happiness even if I'm in prison? Can I be in my pursuit of happiness even in prison? Viktor Frankl found it in a Nazi concentration camp. And I live a pretty easy go compared to those two things. What stops me from living in that space? What stops me? And if I'm being honest, what stops me, and it's ridiculous, but it's true, what stops me is what you think of me. That's what stops me. What stops me is worrying about just how crazy I might appear to other people on planet Earth if no matter what is happening, I choose happiness. Because in the moments when I've done that, in the face of difficult things, what has come back to me is the opinions that I don't care. How can you be happy while this is going on? Clearly, you don't care about people. And I've allowed that perspective to take root within me. Doesn't mean I don't care. It means I choose happiness. But isn't it interesting? Deb and I were talking the other day, and just the phrases that we use, right? The phrases like, we're dying to experience something. Right? But something's really, really exciting. I'm dying to experience that. How much sense does that really make? Wouldn't it make a lot more sense to say, I'm living to experience that? But we don't. But just play with it this next week. Find some of those phrases, and when you're in the company of other people, find a way to speak them out loud, only speak them in the affirmative. Instead of saying, I'm dying to experience that, say, I'm living to experience that. Watch what happens. Watch how many times you get corrected. It's bizarre. But we're so anchored into our blind, rote humanness that change seems to really be our struggle. And if we really get it, we're not changing anything. We're anchoring into the truth of our being. We're simply saying, I'm going to live, actively live my inalienable right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And I'm going to close with this. Liberty is not license. Liberty is not license. I can't tell you the exact place, but Ernest Holmes says that because it's true. And too many of us have confused liberty with license. Too many of us have gone, even in Science of Mind, even in Centers for Spiritual Living, too many of us have gone too far into individualized to where we speak of being individuals as if we are separate. We are not. There's nothing that I can do in my life that doesn't impact every living thing. Nothing. And we have to fundamentally grasp that part of our teaching if we are going to be in integrity as an individualized expression, as a spiritual community. Everything we do impacts the whole body of the infinite. There's no place of isolation where, and I'll default to my 38 years in recovery, where I've heard so many times, I'm only hurting myself. No. No. That's like a cancer cell telling the rest of your body, I'm only a cancer cell in your skin. I'm not hurting the rest of your body. It doesn't work that way. Everything we do impacts the whole body. And so if we really anchor into holding these truths to be self-evident, the call this morning is to evidence our oneness, to evidence it in every breath you take, to live in a level of integrity to where we are consciously, intentionally acting from the center of our being, from the wholeness with complete awareness that I may not know exactly how this is going to impact the whole, but I'm recognizing that it does, and I'm taking responsibility for that. And as I act, I get immediate feedback from the universe, and if I need to adjust for the greater good of the whole body, I adjust. Just like I want every cell in my physical being to work in harmony, right? For the greater good of this thing I call my body. Am I willing to do that for this thing we call the body of the infinite? And if I'm not, why not? That's where the work is. To uncover those beliefs that are in our way of fully participating in our inalienable right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness for life. Not for me as an individual, but for life, the one self. Will we do that? Will we celebrate that today and every day? Let's take this into prayer. So as I breathe, I allow myself to experience that is the breath of the infinite breathing me. Closer than my breath. It is the very life that I am living. One power, one presence, one breath, one heartbeat, one mind. Individualized in the multiplicity of form, in the multiplicity of function, in the multiplicity of experience. And so I, with complete abandon of any personal human agenda, dive into the truth of that. I surrender all agendas. And I commit myself once again to celebrate that I am a center of divine presence. That the very thing that creates, endows us with the freedom to pursue life, liberty, and happiness in the integrity of the one. And so I do. I release any idea of separation. And I embrace and embody the wholeness, the integrity of one. And I allow myself to be guided. I allow my actions to be guided. And I celebrate. I celebrate with abandoned gratitude. A gratitude that simply says, thank you. That is so at peace that the joy of peace overflows in the giggle of the soul. Yes, yes, yes. I invite you, if you are ready to know a new freedom, if you are ready to anchor into the self-evident truth of your being, I invite you to join me as we make these words ownership. Make them our own, as we say. And so it is.